Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shalin and this is V-Running. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 ways that you can better prepare yourself for your first marathon. Let's get into it. This video is for those of you who are just starting out your own journey into endurance running. You may be interested in doing a half marathon, a full marathon, you're just starting to build up that mileage. I'm going to share with you some of the tips that allowed me to prepare as well as I could for my first marathon. Things I learned from that experience that I'm now taking forward into my next marathon preparation. I hope you find this useful. Let's get into it. Tip number 1. Sign up, or at least have a goal, a target race in mind, an event that you wish to participate in, because when you have this goal, you have a deadline, you know that this event is going to come up, you tend to get that extra bit of motivation to get out there and do the runs, fit in the weekly mileage, as opposed to just getting out there and running. When you're running for a purpose, you know that you have to meet certain targets along your training journey. At least for me, that really did make a difference. My first marathon was the New York Marathon of 2022. This was in November of the year, November 4th, I believe it was. And I signed up in January of that year. I think we got the confirmation that I got a place for it as of March. Now, I had started getting into running as of October from the year before. But I was just running aimlessly, no real targets, no real distance that I had to get to, just for the fun of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I did notice is that once I had actually signed up for the race, once I knew that come November 4th, I've got a 42-kilometer race to get into, all my workouts now had a purpose, and I was able to get the most out of each workout from that point on. So that's something that for me was very important. My point number 2 is that whichever goal it is that you do sign up for, whichever event it is that you have in mind, give yourself enough time. Don't pick an event that's just a couple of weeks away or something. Be realistic about this process. It depends where you are in your running journey, what sort of distance you're really comfortable running, but give yourself enough time to build up to that marathon distance. The last thing you want to do is condense all of this into a 1 or 2 month kind of training block just before the event, and you're just killing yourself every workout trying to push the distance, risking injuries. Enjoy the process, give yourself enough time so it doesn't feel rushed, and enjoy the lifestyle that comes with this. So you've picked an event that you wish to take part in, and you wish to start your training journey with enough time now. Point number 3 is get yourself a good pair of running shoes. Chances are, if this is your first endurance event, your first half or full marathon, you haven't really pushed yourself to those kind of distances before, at least not on a regular basis. So you want a good pair of shoes that is designed to run on the surface of the event that you're training for, whether it's a trail run, it could be a road run, a marathon. You want a pair of shoes designed for that gives you enough grip on the surface, absorbs enough of the impact to protect your joints and keep you fresh for consecutive runs. There's a lot of factors that go into choosing the right marathon shoe, and I would refer you to one of my earlier videos on the channel where we go into a lot more detail about this. Some of the key points I'll touch upon are figure out whether you need a neutral shoe or a stability shoe and choose accordingly. The other thing is when you go try on a pair of running shoes, try and do it later in the day, preferably if you've been on your feet all day, so your feet are at their sort of most swollen position. Because when you're in this race situation, your shoes do tend to get tighter as the foot swells up. You want a shoe that is comfortable for the duration of the marathon, not just at the start. So try the shoes on at the end of the day. Bear in mind that there's also variation between the brands in terms of sizing, length and width. So it's very important to at least get to a shop and try this on. Don't just rely on shoe reviews here and there, not when you're pushing these kind of distances in your training block. So you've got yourself a pair of shoes, you've got a target event in mind, you've got enough time to train for that. Point number 4, you need a training plan. you need to figure out how many days a week you want to run, what distances you want to cover in those weeks, how you want to increase that weekly mileage as the time gets closer to the marathon, and things of that nature. Now, what worked very well for me at the start of my training block was 3 runs a week, and remember I had from January all the way till November, so I really didn't have too much rush. All 3 runs were about 5 kilometers initially, and I wasn't pushing myself at the very beginning in terms of speed. I was just getting through these 5-kilometer runs. And then what I did after a couple of weeks of those 5-kilometer 3 times a week, I made that 3rd run a little bit longer. So I pushed it up by 2 or 3 kilometers each time. And about a month later, I then added a 4th training session, a 4th run during the week. From 5 kilometers in those shorter runs, I pushed them up to 6 or 7. So I had a kind of target mileage that I needed to cover each week. I knew that I want to do 3 followed by 4 and eventually 5 runs a week. And one of those runs has to be a long run. That's particularly important, especially as you're in the more advanced stage of your training. The marathon is an endurance event. Now, if you run 5 kilometers a day, every day of the week, that's already 35 kilometers you've covered in the week. You're almost there in terms of marathon distance, but you need to get yourself used to running long distances. Run fewer times, but make sure you put in that 1 long run a week. See where your fitness levels are at as you start the training and what distance is comfortable for you at the beginning, but you really want to push that long run up to 35, 36, 37 kilometers, as close as you can get to the marathon distance at some point in your training. And you want to do that more than once so that you don't shock the system too much on race day. That long run is very important. I can't stress that enough. Factor that into your training. I should think about 4 days a week running is very good if you can achieve that with the 1 long run. And try and be active on at least 1 or 2 other days of the week. Give yourself 1 day of total rest, let the body recover. But on those extra 2 days, try and go for a bike ride, do some weight training, go for a swim, whatever it is you enjoy, but keep yourself active in addition to just the running. Thank you for those of you who have stuck along this far, and if you are still watching, why don't you consider giving us a like and subscribe down below. Coming to the halfway point now, point number 5. What worked really well for me was recording my runs through something like a smartwatch. Initially I used to record just over my phone, but I really felt uncomfortable carrying a phone. Phones these days are so big. Carrying my phone for all the runs, so I used to just leave that at home, and I used to track the runs on the smartwatch. Now the benefit of this is looking back at your stats perhaps at the end of the week, figuring out how much mileage you've covered in that week. You can compare yourself to your running history a few weeks back and see how you've been able to increase that weekly mileage. Look back at the types of runs you did, and if you go into a little more detail, the GPS sensors can tell you what was the elevation gain on each run, the kind of speed you were running at, a lot of metrics that are very useful to know during your training. They can also help you figure out your kind of marathon pace and to determine what sort of speed you want to run your marathon at, establish a target time. So having a smartwatch for me was incredibly useful. What I used for my first marathon at the time was the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4, I think it was, which did the job very well. I have since got a Garmin for better battery life, and I might do a video in the future actually where I compare some of the different smartwatches out there and tell you why I chose a specific one. But it doesn't really matter which watch you choose. All of them cover the same basic metrics of giving you the trends to look at, distance, time, elevation gain, all the basic stuff. So it does help if you have a smartwatch with you. Point number 6 is go slow. Don't push yourself to 100% every single run. Don't max your heart rate. Don't kill yourself in every run. Keep yourself relatively fresh. Run at a pace that you enjoy running at, a pace that your legs are not completely finished the very next day, so that you can run several times a week. I made this mistake at the beginning of my training block for my first marathon. I used to try and go all out each run, looking for a personal best on those 5 kilometer distances. And what I found was that I really struggled to increase the distance from the 5 kilometers the first 3 or 4 weeks. My times on the 5K would improve, but I couldn't really push the distance from 5 to 10. It took me a long time to just get that little distance gain. But once I started slowing down the runs a little bit, I could get through the 5, feel pretty good, and build the distance each time. So what I would tell you is distance before speed, especially being your first marathon. Your body is not accustomed to running these kind of distances. Cover the distance first, have a target goal of weekly mileage that you want to build up towards, and work on that before you push for the speed. And sure enough, later in the training block, when you feel comfortable covering a certain amount of distance, let's say 50 kilometers per week, factor in some speed runs, speed sessions, once, at most twice a week, just to start improving your times. But don't go all out on every single run. Going at a slightly slower pace for these endurance events is super beneficial. My point number 7 is try and get as much race experience as you can. Now, if your target event that you really want to sign up for and do well in is a full marathon, I'm not saying that you need to go and do 1 or 2 full marathons before that, of course not. But get into the race environment, sign up for a 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer local park run, club run, whatever it is that you have. Try and build up towards a half marathon. Covering those distances just during your normal training is very different to actually doing it in a race setting. What you will find on race day is anxiety, nerves the night before, do you sleep well or not, testing your fueling strategy, figure out whether up to a half marathon do you need gels or not, how do you carry liquids for those longer runs, and most critically, how do you pace yourself in a race. What I found, and I did a half marathon, a 10 kilometer and a half marathon in the build up to my first full marathon. I got quite excited at the start, as everyone else around me was. The buzz on race day is so great, you just feel good, you just want to get out there and give it your best shot. And at the beginning of the race, a lot of people tend to go out too fast, a lot faster than the speed that they would normally do their training runs at. And what happens when you do that is, come a certain point in that race, you tend to tire your legs out a bit too much, or push your heart rate up too high and you start getting stitches or cramps. So by doing 1 or 2 races before your main target of the year, the main marathon, you learn how to control that excitement and let the guys go past you, but you know what your rough pace is and you go at that speed that's comfortable. The race is long, 42 kilometers, it's going to take you a few hours. Don't worry about those first 1 or 2 kilometers when people are sprinting ahead of you. You will catch them, I promise you, you will catch them later in the event. Pace yourself, and there's no better way to learn that than through experience, like I did. Get into as many races as you can and prepare yourself that way. Point number 8 is your diet, nutrition. Super important as you get into this endurance training. Now, what I did at the beginning of my preparation for the full marathon, I had pretty much cut out carbohydrates from my diet. I was almost in the keto diet, just having a lot of proteins, because before I signed up for a marathon, I used to do a lot more, used to spend a lot more time in the gym, just weightlifting, and I didn't need too many carbs, because when you're pushing weights, you're not burning as many calories as you would in these endurance events. And so I was on a low carb, high protein diet. Now at the start of my training block, I'd be very good for those 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer paces, but beyond that I'd find myself exhausted and needing to reach for electrolyte drinks, gels and things of that nature. But what I realized was that when you're running 3-4 times a week, you're doing long distances, you're building up weekly mileage to some substantial amounts, your body needs energy. You don't want to burn into muscle tissue, you need some carbohydrates. So put some good quality carbohydrates into your diet, any complex carbohydrates, not the refined sugars and things, but good brown bread, pastas, good cereals, things of that sort. Don't shy away from carbohydrates. Even if your goal is to lose weight, you will still lose weight when running. Don't be shy of carbs. Maybe you can avoid eating them at night. But breakfast, lunch, factor in a few carbs, especially the day before your longer runs. In effect, you're keeping a little bit of carb load going so that you have the energy for those longer distances. I would also add to that and say keep your protein intake quite high, either through natural foods or take a protein supplement like a whey protein shake, because with all this running that you're doing, especially if it's the first time you're getting into these kind of activities, your body is going to look for extra energy, and if you run out of carbohydrate and carbohydrate sources, it will start latching into the protein sources in the body, which are your muscles, and you don't want to lose too much muscle mass while you're doing this. You want to keep your strength, so I would say that your protein intake needs to be high enough, and for me a protein shake 2 or 3 times a week in addition to the dietary sources of protein is what I'm doing to maintain that. Point number 9 is stay active, not just with the running if you're doing 3 or 4 runs a week, but with other activities as well. Now we touched on this earlier in the video as well, but in addition to the running, I do a weekly bike ride. I'll hit the gym once or twice a week. I'll try and fit in a swim session as I can, whenever I can as well. Don't just focus on your legs, but give yourself a full body workout. Core is super important. Try and do a yoga session or some good core exercises. Lower back as well takes a surprising amount of impact while you're running, so you want to strengthen the muscles around these core areas to be able to support the joints as you go forward. So in addition to the running, there are a lot of complementary exercises that can help you. Implementing another form of cardio, for example cycling, rowing, swimming, is super beneficial as well, because you cannot run every day, especially at the beginning of your thing. You might only be doing 2-3 runs a week because of your legs, your muscle stiffness, tiredness of that sort, but you can still boost your cardiac capacity and improve fitness through these other types of exercises or other types of sports. It could be a racket sport, football, whatever it is. Stay active. You don't have to run every day, but try and be active 6 days a week, because every little bit helps. My last tip that I can give you is listen to your body and rest. So you're active 6 days a week, you're running, you're pushing the distances, you will get little aches and niggles here and there. Listen to your body. Try and understand what it is that's hurting you. Is it just a muscular ache because of a good workout you had? Is it a joint that's hurting you? Perhaps you're not comfortable with your shoe and you're getting an ache underneath your foot where you shouldn't be. And establish where is the cause of pain. See someone for this if you need to. But if it's something abnormal, if it's not just your normal muscle ache after a workout, then don't overdo it and injure yourself. Rest as much as you need. And give yourself enough time to build yourself up to marathon distance. Don't be in a rush to hit that target 42 kilometers because you could compromise your joints or the health of other aspects of your body in the meantime. So listen to your body and rest at least 1 day a week. Try not to do any form of activity whatsoever other than your normal routine. Really focus on getting good sleep every night, because that's how your body repairs itself after workouts. So set the environment at home in a way that it's conducive to sleeping well, whether it is drawing the curtains, keeping ambient sounds away, pushing the cat off the bed, whatever it might be. Really focus on getting in your 7.5, 8.5 hours of sleep every night if possible. 1 full day of rest a week, and be cognizant of any little aches and niggles that should or shouldn't be there, and understand what it is that's causing that pain and treat accordingly. So with that, I conclude my video. Those are 10 tips that I gained from my first marathon training block. I hope this stuff helps you. For those of you out there who may be more experienced runners, if something else worked well for you, hit us up in the comments and tell us, what tips have I left out that could help not just me but everyone else watching this as well. Good luck to you if you are looking to sign up for a half marathon, a full marathon. Let me know which one it is that you're going to do, and I wish you well in your training journey. It's enjoy the lifestyle that comes with it, because it really is very rewarding in many other ways. Thank you.